you have other things to do, and so to come here on a Wednesday is really, really appreciated. I'm not going to be able to read without my glasses. So, Fox, are you ready to go? Not yet? Okay. Excuse me for a second. You should get ready for a picture. Okay. New York City drivers,
No offense, but they could have walked in front of us real fast. We didn't have to put them.
All right, you can go.
Maria, tell your consultant, don't put elderly people in the street. They could have walked in front of us real fast. They could have walked in front of us. Don't do that.
The state would put them in a nursing home, don't worry. That's what would happen.
No offense, but don't do that.
We didn't do anything.
You told her to walk out there. She could have
No,
walked
I
in
didn't.
front
I
of
asked
us.
him to make sure she's okay if she goes in the street.
She should have came on the sidewalk.
Okay, then you should
We
have
shouldn't
said
set
so.
up here.
I just saw it.
Okay, then say something.
I just did. I just did.
Guys,
I'm not paying this, so watch it. Okay?
Happy first
Don't
thing
consult me.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning.
Okay.
My name is Maria D'Angelo. I want to welcome everybody here today and to thank you all for coming out. I want to thank our co-sponsors today. We have a number of them here. And I want to thank all of our community members and residents and friends from all over the tri-state area came in today to stand with us. So I'm Executive Director of One City Rising and co-founder of the West 80s Community Group, sponsoring today's rally. I'm a lifelong New Yorker, a 42-year resident of the West 80s, and I raised my 3 children in this neighborhood. We're here today because Manhattan is turning into Shelter Island, and there seems to be no rhyme or reason to anything that's being done in this neighborhood. And we're here today really to stand for common sense legislation for ways that we can improve what we need in this neighborhood to make sure that we're all safe and that, importantly, people who are living in shelters are also kept safe and the children in our schools are safe and everybody is safe. So we're here today to introduce legislation that we hope is going to get us on the road to common sense, good judgment, and making sure we cite shelters to help people where they need to be helped. We also just want to point out, most of us are volunteers. We are not here, we're not getting paid to be here. We're doing this because what brings us all together is a love of our city and a love of our neighborhood. We want this neighborhood and we want our city to thrive. We want our residents, our small businesses, people who live here, children, families, people in shelters. We are compassionate for them. We are compassionate that we do what we can do to help make sure we're meeting their needs. We care about them and we care about our neighborhood. And that's why we're here today. We need safe shelter laws. We need to look at how we're citing shelters in New York City and make sure our city is using common sense and good judgment when they're citing shelters. It really doesn't make sense to cite shelters a stone's throw away from a public school playground and a middle school, the Center School, which is right here. We desperately need serious reforms in our shelter system, and our shelters and our subways need to stop being substitutes for mental health facilities and drug treatment facilities. Not substitutes. Too often, all over New York City, facilities are being put in neighborhoods that just don't work. This includes oversaturation of shelters, and shelters like this one that's opening on 83rd Street, where criminal background checks are minimally done and drugs and alcohol and screening will not be done. We also don't want to see safe injection sites where drugs are consumed legally in residential neighborhoods where children are going to be exposed to drugs, alcohol, and other kinds of addictions that's really, really bad for children. This West 83rd Street shelter is going to have needle depositories, and they have a practice of looking the other way in regard to drugs and alcohol. This schoolyard, residents of the block who you will be hearing from shortly, this schoolyard, which has been across the street from a previous shelter, was filled with hypodermic needles. It was very hard for the families and the children living there to have to deal with that on a daily basis. The lack of safety protocols and screening so that the residents of the shelters are safe on the inside of the shelter is also of critical importance. This building is violating zoning laws, it's overcrowded, and it has very little space for leisure or relaxing. These are not the kind of shelters that we need to be citing to take care of our most vulnerable in New York City. It also is likely to have not do any mental health screening. We've got a crisis with mental health in this city. We are not doing enough, as recent events have showed us. We're not doing enough to address the mental health crisis, and using shelters and subways as substitutes for proper mental health facilities really must end. We have to have common sense about these shelters, and they have to have protocols in place to keep everybody safe. This is a first step in regulating how the city can site shelters. So our first bill, which we're proud to introduce today, our first bill will seek to restrict the siting of shelters within 200 feet of a school zone or playground.
Yes.
Yes. 200 feet. That's the same rule that applies to citing restaurants, for example, that serve alcohol can't be within 1,000 feet of a school or a playground. The 200 feet rule is a sensible, common sense rule, makes a lot of sense, and that's what we want to see the city do. It's a first step forward. It is consistent with other laws and is less restrictive than some of the laws, so it's a reasonable first step. Also, we need other laws, and we're going to be doing that over the coming months. We can't keep having our comptroller, Brad Lander, refusing to audit and refusing to audit and hold the shelter providers accountable. New York taxpayers are spending.
Yes.
We want Brad Lander to hear that we expect him to audit these shelter providers and stop this incredible conflict of interest he has. His wife is the president of a not-for-profit umbrella group that covers all of the shelter providers in the city, and he is our controller, responsible for our budget. He is not auditing the shelters. He is not holding them accountable. It must end now. We need to increase our mental health facilities and drug treatment programs so that people will get the help they need and deserve. Today, we're going to be hearing from people from all over New York City with different perspectives on this intractable problem. But we are united in our desire for solutions that work and a city that is finally hearing us and is responsive to our concerns for how we are addressing mental illness, homelessness, and drug addiction with real solutions. We have a community board in this neighborhood that doesn't hear us. We send letters, we call, we testify. Our community board lets us down time and time again. Community Board 7 lets us down time and time again. Here we have a beautiful building located directly across from a playground and a school, and what we need to do is prioritize affordable housing for people on the block who need stable and good housing. So we want to see affordable housing. We have a beautiful plan to put affordable housing in the building that would bring families. We desperately need this, so I'm happy to give this to the media as well. We need affordable housing. We'll stabilize this block. This block has seen a lot of trauma. Maria Hernandez was murdered on this building, on the block, up 2 doors down in January. So the block has seen a lot of trauma, and what we need is a stable solution for our community and our neighborhood. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our first speaker. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening. And our first speaker is going to be Donna Cherry, who is a resident of West 83rd Street. She lives right next door, so come on up. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. My name is Donna, and right now I'm Donna from the block, if you will. In fact, I live right next door to the proposed site for the safe haven. I go by these buildings 6 to 8 times a day to walk the dog, to take public transportation to work, you name it. life on the block is the usual Upper West Side mixture of housing along with people walking their dogs, churches, gyms, firehouse, yoga studios, post office, you name it. It's a buzz with daily activity, including having our most precious asset, elementary school children, directly across the street from where I live as the proposed shelter. In fact, here's a picture of one of the beds overlooking the playground. Does this look safe to you? Does this look safe to you?
No.
Me neither. That's why I'm here today. What concerns me the most is that there's no screening of tenants. What that means is loitering is allowed any time of the day. Smoking is allowed in the tiny prison-style backyard, which will come into my windows. There is no curfew, as I said. They can do anything they want. In fact, as Maria pointed out earlier, they even have sharp waste containers so that they can put their hypodermic needles in if that's the kind of drugs they need or take, because there's no screening. It's about placing people who are 50% as a community mentally ill and or drug addicts, more than 50% total, in the neighborhoods where children are playing right across the street at their school. How is this possible? We are against this big real estate deal that will disrupt and destabilize an already fragile block and neighborhood. It's the wrong place and location for this. Completely. The brothers that own the building are slumlords with a record that can make more with the government than they can by renting it out room by room. And it's not just the local homeless. Homeless will be brought in from all over the area that aren't even necessarily from our neighborhood. But let me be clear, this isn't about demonizing the homeless. It's about demonizing the big money people behind the homeless programs who consider themselves to be do-gooders, but are really more virtue signalers out to make a buck. It's a money grab. It's all how it's being handled. A money grab being handled by the big government and the, quote, non-profit vendors. The COOs of these nonprofits make anywhere between $300,000 to $600,000 a year. Affordable, yes, for part-time work. What is up with that? Affordable family housing is one thing, let alone much more preferable, as Maria proposed earlier, and as we're going to be handing out flyers about that today. A shelter that is incredibly small to house 108 people is another, especially one that's not even legally zoned to house that many people. It's legally zoned to be an SRO. Eric Adams and the DHS are not in line with what is safe for the neighborhood and are not even following local building ordinances. This is about child safety. This is about adult safety. This is about my safety. Why do we have this kind of integration that puts our neighborhoods at risk? I have been asked, as many of us have been asked, where is your compassion? What are you thinking? Don't you care? And all I'm thinking is, where is the compassion for one community to the total disregard of others? We are parents, neighbors, teachers that are grassroots. We are not Trump-loving Republicans, so don't go there with me. None of us are paid to be here. But with agendas steamrolling over us, there's nothing else that we can do besides let our voice be heard here and now. Because Eric Adams sure isn't hearing it. Mark Levine sure isn't hearing it, and neither is Gail Brewer. But maybe they will now. Thank you.
Yes, Donna Perry, co-president of the West 80th Community Group. Our next speaker is another resident of West 83rd Street, Maria Gonzalez. Come on.
Maria Gonzalez.
Maria Gonzalez. Hi, Maria.
Okay, Donna has more or less covered every angle. I'm just here to say I'm a resident of the neighborhood, the family, about 3 generations. I have nieces and nephews and other family members who attend the school. In the past, we have to get rid of this unsafe haven. Okay, because in the past they've had shelters, they've had other facilities to try to help the homeless, and it's always been a tragedy. Drugs, fighting, killings, and whatever. It's been a nightmare. And they know now that, from what I understand, there's no background check and no supervision. And you know, they have child molesters, from what I understand, coming here. You know. And we have school kids who are up and down. We have to worry about the kids being molested or whatever. We don't want to wait until something happens. So let's get rid of this unsafe haven. Okay? We need affordable housing for people to work and, you know. Okay? Thank you very much. Maria Mary from the Upper West Side.
Thank you.
Bye, Maria.
Our next speaker is Cynthia Tibb. She's president of the West Side Urban Renewal Tenants Association, NYCPix, second vice president of the Manhattan Southern District Council of Presidents, Manhattan Democratic County number 69.
Yes,
Cynthia.
So
Dilo.
let's get this straight, first of all. We're for children. Children first. Everyone else comes second. Everyone else should always be second. As parents, our children come first. And never should an SRO be housing criminals across the street from a pre-K playground. Never should pedophiles be housed across the street from a pre-K playground. This has nothing to do with us not having compassion for the homeless. But at the end of the day, those two buildings have been an SRO since the day I was born. I am born and raised Upper West Side. My children have gone to this school. I still have children in this school. And enough is enough. We have to protect children first and foremost. The community board does not represent this community.
Yep, they do not.
The community board is too busy lobbying for kickbacks for themselves.
Amen. That's right.
And we are also, I'm going to make this very clear to everyone here. This is not a Bash Gail Brewer campaign. She has made it very clear that 108 beds are too many. It should be 80. She has said that the zoning is wrong for these two buildings. She has said that she, along with Brad Hoylman Siegel, have made it very clear that the zoning is wrong. So before we bash our elected officials, everybody get your facts in order. This is about protecting children, our most vulnerable of the vulnerablest. These are kids that will vote one day. We don't want them being attacked by pedophiles before that happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. Cynthia is a great voice of the community, and we're really lucky to have her.
Cynthia.
Cynthia. Our next speaker is Carmen Quinones, my friend. She's a
Now
NYCPix
tenemos a
president
Carmen
and
Quiñones.
resident of the Frederick Douglass houses on Columbus Avenue and 100th Street. She's probably too modest to say that she recently was awarded a Westie, the very prestigious Westie Award. She's a community leader, and we're very fortunate to have her here today.
Thank you very much. Listen, I'm going to go beyond this. I'm not talking about the shelter or nothing. The truth of the matter is our elected officials have failed the people that made this country. We have made everything in this country, and we are put aside. They don't care about us. They don't care about my children. They don't care about me. They don't care about how you live. They don't care. We have to start making sure we get rid of all these elected officials or anybody that you want to call. We have to make sure we get them out. Stop voting for people because they give you a block of cheese. And we have to make sure that our residents know that we are being squeezed out of New York City. Right now, we lost West Side High on the 102nd in Columbus Avenue. All right? They have take that school now. They want to send that school to the east side. Our kids are under attack at all costs. I'm not talking about just our babies. I'm talking about our college kids and everything. They are now, it's not about us. They're attacking our children. And that, my dear, is serious. Because I got 19 grandkids and 13 great-grand. So before you come for me, you better watch it. You better watch it. Because I'm waiting for all of y'all. And all y'all know that I know you. I know you. All about you. So when you come for us, you better come right. Because y'all doing some dirty ass shit. Y'all doing dirty stuff. Cunning stuff. Stop the corruption. That's what you need to do. And take care of your children.
Amen. Okay. Our next speaker is Susan Lee. She's a candidate for New York City Council District 4.
Susan Lee.
She is a stalwart fighter and community activist, and she's done a great deal in Chinatown to make sure that the people of Chinatown are kept safe and have good, thriving community and neighborhoods. Susan?
Good morning, everyone. I want to thank Maria and the organizers for bringing everyone here today. My name is Susan Lee. I'm a candidate for City Council District 1 in Lower Manhattan, but I'm here as a New Yorker. I fought the homeless shelter down in Chinatown. We had 6 shelters, and the city wanted to put 4 more. I was able to galvanize the community, and the mayor shut down not 1, but 2 proposed shelter funds. So I believe that the community speaking up together will affect change. I did that because of the fact that one of the shelters was placed across the street from a daycare center. And within a 1,000 feet radius of that proposed shelter, which was a low threshold safe injection site, there were 8 other educational facilities. And like Cynthia said just before, this is about the children.
That's right.
If we don't speak up for them, because they can't speak up for themselves, then what good are we? We need to make sure that we champion for our children. I applaud Maria for her proposal in zoning regulation. If I'm in council and if that's something that comes before the council, I will definitely support it, because we see that restaurants have to go through a lengthy SLA process to get their liquor license. Why can't we hold shelter providers accountable to that standard? I am tired of us having policies that are just in piecemeal and not addressing the holistic problem of homelessness. We're just warehousing homeless individuals. We need to get mental beds back into our system. We closed plenty of them during COVID. The governor wanted 800 beds reinstated. We have yet to put half of that back into the community. So we need a holistic approach towards mental illness, housing the unhoused homeless, and also advocating for our kids. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Susan. Our next speaker is Wei Hua Jin. She is the charter president of the Chinese American Citizens Alliance of Greater New York, who is one of our co-sponsors for today's rally. It is the largest and oldest Chinese American civil rights organization. It's based here in Manhattan, in Chinatown. She is also a Manhattan Institute fellow, a writer. I follow Wei Hua, writes beautiful stuff, so we're very happy and very lucky to have her today.
Thank you, Maria. Thank everybody who's here today. This is about this community. It's about our schools. It's about our children, but it's not just about them. I'm going to name a couple of names. But we could go on with a long, long list. Michelle Go, who was pushed into the trash by a homeless person. Yao Pan Ma, who was stomped on as he was collecting cans for his livelihood to death by a homeless person. Christina Yuna Lee, who was killed at her own home by tens of stabs by a homeless person.
They were elderly, women. These are the people who are vulnerable too, and of course, our children. These shelters are not working. The shelters about financing the people who run them. That is not what shelters are supposed to do. These are people with mental health issues that go into them without vetting. They have criminal records. Each person that was killed that I mentioned was killed by somebody with long rap sheets also. So we have a crisis in our shelters, and we should not be putting them into this community or any community to hurt our children, our communities, all the people who live here. Yeah? So everyone, keep this up. We're going to stop it here. We're going to stop it everywhere. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Raul Rivera. Raul is the TLC driver advocate and a prominent figure in helping TLC drivers empower themselves. He is the founder of Drivers United.
So my name is Raul Rivera. I'm a native New Yorker. I'm the founder of NYC Drivers Unite. I'm also a former homeless person. I was living at the Bowery Mission, 227 Bowery. And I was there about 7 months. And it wasn't safe. No metal detectors. I was happy I had a place to rest my head and sleep, but it wasn't easy. Also, I want to mention that the mayor's in need of beds for the homeless. On the floor that I was in, we had 18 beds and only 3 individuals. On another floor, you had 18 beds and 7 individuals. So there are beds available. And honestly, to say it's like a business. The Bowery Mission is like a business. They receive so much money from donations and the city, but it felt like a business. They wanted me to find work, and I had to give them 25% of what I earned. That's the way it runs. And there's something about that bothered me. You know, if you're in need and you want to help somebody, you don't ask them for money because then you're not helping. I don't know what the system they have, but they had a contract. I signed it. I wanted to get out of a bad system at 90 Lafayette to get into a better system, but apparently they're pretty similar. There's people that were in there that were not vetted correctly. They were talking to themselves. They were laughing at themselves. And when I reached out to the case managers, I was the problem. So we want to address this to the mayor. We want safety on all shelters. Regardless of where they're at, we want safety for the shelters. We want safety for the children and the New Yorkers, including the homeless, because I was homeless. I don't have a rap sheet. I don't have mental issues. I don't have a criminal record. Mr. Mayor Eric Adams, if you need beds, there are plenty empty beds at 227 Bowery. Thank you so much.
Our next speakers are from Passengers United, President Carlton D'Souza and Vice President Jack Nierenberg. Both of them are community leaders who've done a great deal to promote safety on our subway system.
So good afternoon, everyone. So it is so important for all of us to be here today. I just want to give all of you a round of applause because I'm so proud of you. And this is the type of leadership of us as a community coming together to speak out about what's happening. But what I'm outraged about is why are our elected officials dumping sexual predators and people with drug issues in communities where you have young children and you have people injecting needles right in playgrounds. That is dangerous. That is a biohazard, because if any of those kids pick up those needles and they play with those needles, they can get HIV, they can get AIDS, and you don't even know if someone's on the sidewalk, strung out on K2, they could be attacking them. So what we need our elected officials to do is they need to do background searches on these single men who are being put in these shelters, and they need to be fingerprinted, they need to be processed, and they need to be checked. That's how you do it. That's what's important to make our city work. Because if you have these people running around with criminal records and they're attacking people, that is a problem. That is what we are all concerned about. And what happens is a lot of times, a lot of these single men, they'll go in the shelters and they'll have overdoses or they murder someone in the shelter, as is what was said today by many of the speakers. So the Upper East Side is a nice area. We need it to be, safe. But not only the Upper West Side, all the areas in New York City should have this process. And like Suzanne Lee had also mentioned, is that it's hard for a business to get a liquor license, but it's easy for a shelter to come and you have 200 people move into a community. They're not being processed, they're not being checked. Nobody knows, whether they have a criminal record or not. They could have murdered 5 people in prison, or they could have been sexual predators. So that's why you need that. You need background searches. That's what works. Thank you, guys.
I do want to mention one more thing. We are not denying, none of us here are denying that the homeless crisis is a real issue in New York City. But at the same time, there needs to be not only a humane approach, especially our job is working in transportation. We cover all the issues in the subway system, in our mass transit. So we've seen what's been going on in the subway system, where the subways are basically taken over by homeless individuals and those who are mentally ill. And it's not safe for them, it's not safe for anyone else. But there needs to be not only a humane approach to getting these people the help they need and out of the subway system, but also not every solution needs to be zero-sum, and it should never be zero-sum, especially when you're putting people who have these mental issues potentially right near the most vulnerable people, and that is our children. So we need to address this, again, in a holistic approach and a way that's actually humane and productive. Thank you.
I just want to say something else. Going into the shelter system was difficult, but for me personally, as a New Yorker, as a native New Yorker, what was difficult is to go into the shelter, go to sleep, and right in front of the doorstep of the shelter, we have people sleeping there on the floor, and I'm going in to a place that had a dozen beds empty. That also bothered me because they're humans too. And also, I also want to address the fact that we have many drivers, New York City drivers, that are sleeping in their vehicles. I was one of them. I slept in my vehicle. I've done that. So when you see an Uber driver in the city, he might be sleeping in his car. I was one of them. We work hard, and the Seattle Uber driver in Seattle makes more money than the driver here in New York. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to close up now. I want to thank you again, everybody, co-sponsors, and everybody for coming out, and members of the press. I hope we all learned many things today about different perspectives, and what brings us together is a common love of New York City, not what separates us. So we're in this together because we love the city, we want it to thrive, grow, and work for everybody, and that's why we're here today. We have deep passion for all New Yorkers. The building needs to be affordable housing. It's the right solution. We need laws that are going to bring some common sense to how shelters are set. We've got to bring some rational, common sense approaches to deciding the shelters in New York. They can't be across the street from schoolyards and playgrounds like this. It just doesn't make any sense. We all know that. So affordable housing, that's the way to go. So thank you again. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. No problem. All right.